You ever take a sip of sake? You know it's good, but when someone asks you why, you just can't find the words? Yeah, we've all been there. Well, you are not alone. Today, we're going to dive into a really simple but honestly powerful framework that will totally change the way you taste and talk about sake. All right, so let's just get right to it. Why is it so hard to describe the taste of sake? I mean, you get it, right? You taste a little bit of fruit, maybe something kind of creamy, a little bit of a sharp note, but trying to string all of that together into something that actually makes sense, it's a real challenge. And listen, if you've ever felt like that, you are in really good company. This quote here is from a sake expert, Genya Nozawa, and I think it just hits the nail on the head. Even the pros, they find sake's complexity a little overwhelming sometimes. So seriously, it's not you. It's just the nature of this amazing drink. So here's the real problem. Let's call it flavor overload. The second you take a sip, your brain just gets blasted with all this information. Sweetness, acidity, bitterness, the texture, umami. It's all happening at once. And trying to process all of that in one go, that's exactly why we get stuck and can't find the words. But here's the big secret. The real breakthrough? Getting better at tasting sake isn't about having some kind of superhuman palate. No way. It's all about changing your approach. It's about having a better process, a more structured way to taste. And that process, we're calling it the timeline tasting method. It's this super simple step-by-step approach that helps you break down all those complex flavors into little manageable pieces. It lets you finally make sense of that beautiful chaos that's happening in your glass. Okay, so here's the key. It's all about this four-step sequence. See, the flavors in sake don't actually hit you all at once, even though it feels that way. They arrive on a timeline. First, you get the sweetness. Then comes the acidity. After that, bitterness. And finally, the finish. By just focusing on them in that order, one at a time, you give your brain a real fighting chance to figure out what's going on. All right, let's dive into step one, sweetness. When you take that first sip, you have one job and one job only. Just focus on the sweetness. That's it. Try to ignore everything else for a second. Don't worry about acidity. Don't worry about texture. Just the sweetness. And here's how you do it. Ask yourself a few simple questions. How sweet is this really? Is it super intense or more subtle? And what does it remind me of? Is it like table sugar or is it more like a juicy ripe melon or a pear? When you isolate it like that, it becomes so much easier to put a name to it. Okay, now here's a really cool pro tip you gotta keep in mind. Our sense of smell and taste are totally connected, right? Well, a really fruity smell like banana or apple can actually trick your brain into thinking the sake is way sweeter than it actually is. It's just a fun little quirk of how our senses work, but it's super important to be aware of when you're tasting. And you know what? This is the key to finally understanding that word dry that gets thrown around so much. A dry sake isn't just not sweet. The simplest way to think about it is this. It's a drink that literally makes your mouth feel dry after you've had a sip. And that feeling, it's not just about a lack of sugar. It's all about how the acidity and texture play together. Okay, so once you've got a good read on that initial sweetness, it's time to move on. Next up on our timeline are acidity and bitterness. And these are the elements that give a sake its structure, its backbone. It's where all that interesting depth comes from. So, acidity comes right after the sweetness. And just like before, we're not just asking if it's acidic. We're asking, what kind of acidity are we talking about? Is it that bright, sharp zing you get from a lemon? Or is it something softer, rounder, almost like the creaminess you get in yogurt? The character of that acid tells you a ton about the sake style. And this is where we can geek out a little, because the science here is fascinating. See, acidity isn't just one thing. It's usually a mix of three main acids, and they all feel totally different. First, you've got lactic acid. That gives you that soft, creamy, almost milky roundness. If you taste that, chances are you're drinking a traditional Kimoto or Yamahai style. Then there's malic acid. That's your crisp, sharp, green apple kind of bite, which you'll find in a lot of fruit-forward sakes. And last, citric acid. That's the bright, tangy punch, like a lemon. That's common in more modern sakes. So when you nail down the type of acidity, you're basically decoding how the sake was made. How cool is that? All right, right after that acidity hits, you're often going to notice some bitterness. Now hold on. For a long time, people thought bitterness in sake was a bad thing, a flaw, but that's a totally outdated way of thinking. In a really well-made sake, bitterness is absolutely crucial. It's not an off flavor at all. It's what adds complexity and depth and all those interesting layers. It's what makes a sake interesting and great with food. And this is super important. We have to be clear about the difference between bitterness and something called astringency. People mix these up all the time, but they are completely different. Bitterness is a flavor. You taste it with your tongue. Astringency, though, that's a texture. It's a feeling. It's that drying, kind of grippy sensation you get on your gums and the inside of your cheeks. The best example, that feeling you get from really strong black tea. That's astringency. So one's a taste, the other's a feeling. Big difference. Okay, so you've made it through sweetness, acidity, and bitterness. Now we're at the final, and honestly, often the most memorable part of the timeline, the grand finale, the finish. This is all about what's left behind after you've swallowed. And there's this really beautiful Japanese term we have to talk about here, fukumika. Basically, it's the after aroma. It's the scent that kind of rises up from your throat into your nose after you've swallowed. And sometimes, this is where a whole new wave of fruity or floral aromas just pops up out of nowhere. When that happens, you know you're drinking a really well-made sake. So when you're thinking about the finish, here's your mental checklist. First, how long does it last? Does it disappear quickly? That's called kirei, a clean finish. Or does it linger for a while? Do you get any of that fukumika, that after aroma? Is there any bitterness left? And if so, is it a nice bitterness? And finally, do you feel that gentle warming sensation from the alcohol? And that's it. There you have it. You've just walked through a complete step-by-step tasting method that can take you from feeling kind of confused to totally confident. Think of this as your new secret weapon for unlocking the story that's hidden inside every single bottle of sake. So let's just recap the key takeaways here. Number 1, focus on one single thing at a time. Number 2, always follow that sequence. Sweet, acid, bitter, finish. As you get the hang of it, you'll start to notice how they all play together. And maybe the most important thing of all, trust your senses. Whatever you're tasting, it's real and it's valid. And just like our expert, Genya Nozawa, said earlier, this is a skill. It's not some kind of magic. The more you actually use this timeline framework, the more it's going to become second nature. Your palate will get sharper, you'll get more confident. It really is all about practice. So next time you pour yourself a glass of sake, don't just drink it, taste it on a timeline. The only question left is, what incredible new flavors are you about to discover?